All right, so there's a few things that you need to know before you start working in FigJam. So here I have FigJam open. It's a local application installed, and I can see I'm in the Robinson Morton company. And then these folders, and they're actually called projects in FigJam, but these folders are available to me. You might see one with your name on it. So for example, mine might say Daniel Solomon. Now I can create a new folder, or again, here, project, or I could just get into one that already exists. So I'll get into this folder, and then from here I can create new, and I want to do a FigJam board. You may not see design file or these other things, but definitely use FigJam board. And then immediately you're presented with this kind of interface. Now we have a template, but there's a little things kind of wonky with it. So really you want to start with this kind of blank project here. And, you know, off the bat, you might want to rename it from the beginning. So here I'll call it, there we go, Trump Hospital. And then to add a timetable, I'll hit this plus button and I'll go to widgets. And then from here, I'll go to from Robinson Morton. So plus button, widgets, from Robinson Morton. And then the first shape I see, I can either click this or I can drag it onto the page. And depending on your internet connection, it could take a couple seconds or maybe up to a minute. Now, we've got this file. We've got this timetable. It's showing. And before we start adding activities and stuff like that, we want to adjust our time scale and our page, because doing so after we've added activities or tasks and milestones, things can get a little bit messy, and I'll get to that in a second. So while I have this object selected, you'll see I have this kind of toolbar at the top. And if I hover over it, I can see kind of some of these tooltips here. And so the beginning year is 2025, and I can change this to any of these. Same thing with the end year, and I choose the month, the starting month, and finishing month. It is possible to choose a start date that happens after the finish date. It just won't look right, so obviously remember not to do that. And so I can quickly, I can change this to a 3-year project, and just like that, it moved. Now, can you adjust the time scale? Can you show days instead of weeks? The answer is no. This is a fixed time scale. Can you make these weeks wider? And the answer again is no. This is a fixed, completely fixed, and it only goes to December of 2028. It does not go any further than that. That is for now. A future update, depending on how many people use this, if there's enough support, we could totally add that in the future. But right now, it's not there. The next thing, and this should have really been the first thing we do, is hit Control K, and you want to turn off that snap.grid. So you may not see it the first time you're on, so you just type in the word snap and make sure that thing is unchecked. That is extremely important that you do that. Okay, last, let's add some activities. So to do that, by the way, you see like recent widgets are here, but just in case you don't see that, again, under widgets from Robinson Morton, you can grab some tasks and put them on, drop them onto the page. And then you can have them line up exactly just like that. To make changes, you just kind of click on the text. You can't click outside, it has to be on the text. You can select the text as is, and you can say mobilize. And then from here, you can obviously change some colors and make your other changes. Right now, this time scale that shows weeks, days, and months, all it does is just change the letter here, nothing else, and that's for a future update. But for now, that's all we have. And then same thing with the milestones. We can add that here. Right, and this is not really a demo of how the project works. This is just show you the things that you have to know before you move on. Lastly, you can copy and paste most file types, including PDFs, into FigJam. I wouldn't recommend doing like a drawing because it could take a while because it brings in individual lines. So maybe a JPEG instead. Maybe convert it to an image first. Logos work just fine. And then, so let's talk about printing. Now I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller so it's, a little bit easier to manage. Oh, actually, before we do that, this is a perfect example. You saw how the tasks moved when I changed the timescale. That is not desired behavior. So instead, we can hold down the Option key, or the Alt key. And when you do that, you see how my mouse changes. So I can do that, and I can click and drag. And I can move this down or to the side. It doesn't really matter. And you saw it brought down just the timescale. It did not include the tasks and milestones. And from here, now I will adjust the timescale. Okay. And, it's nice to have it lined up. And you can kind of see that blue line on the left there that tells you it's lined up. All right. And so now I can select all my activities. So I kind of drew a box here. Then I'll hold the Shift key to deselect this. And then I'm going to, I'm going to hold down the Alt key again because I'm going to make a copy. And if I hold down my Shift key as well, so now I have my Alt and Shift key select down on my keyboard, it's going to make sure that it brings it down exactly, in the Y direction, not the X. And I can, so it restricts it to the X and Y location. So that's a nice thing to know in case you need to move things up and down. If you hold down the Shift key, it will restrict it to just the Y or X direction. Okay, so now you see I actually have two copies of the same schedule, which is fine because this is the one I want to print. Now, how do we print it? This is the thing. You need to put it in a section. Because if I just hit this and did export to selection, it would print just the timescale with none of the activities, which is fine if that's all you want, but I'm assuming you want the activities. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to select everything on the page, and then there's a button here that says wrap into new selection. So I'll do that. Now, by default, it gives it a little bit of a margin, whether you want that or not, it doesn't matter. What I recommend is deleting the name. So I double clicked into section and I removed the name, and that is because if you don't, it'll actually be printed. But now it is ready. And so when we are ready to print, we have to select the section and not the timescale, or the timetable. We have to select the section. So from here, I'll zoom in and I'll just make sure I have the selection checked. And by the way, you see the difference in the toolbar. So here, the timetable is selected. This is not what we want to print. Here, the section is selected, and you kind of see actually now there's like a square here, and there's some other options, including lock. And we could even change the background, but we're not going to keep that to white. And now that that's selected, we can right click on it, or hit, oh, that's weird. There we go. We can right click on it and export selection. And then from there, PDF works. And then you do export area, selection only. You can change the quality if you want, but the medium generally works. Here's the thing. Bluebeam has a bit of an issue rendering colors and even sometimes fonts. So sometimes in Bluebeam, this PDF doesn't work well. Some of the colors just come in transparent. So you could also do PNG or JPEG. Both of those will work. Those are image files, and then you can use Bluebeam Stapler, for example, to convert that into a PDF. If you want to use it in a PowerPoint, then skip the whole PDF and just bring in a PNG or a JPEG. That'll work much better. And so that is how you export. All right, so that is everything that you need to know from how to add in your shapes or your widgets, how to print, and moving things around. Again, holding down that Shift key is going to be your friend. And just remember to select everything and go like this, and to deselect things from your selection, and you hold down the Shift key. All right, and if there's any questions, of course, reach out. Thanks.